Hello, book nerds. Welcome to the Book Nerds podcast. I'm so sorry for the slight delay. We were having some technical issues, but we are here and good to go. It's Cookbook launch day, and it has become a tradition at Book Nerds because we started last year and we had the lovely Natasha Selmi, who is a chef, and the awesome Veer Sangvi. And in its second edition, of course, we are very lucky to have Sunita Kohli, who is an acclaimed interior designer, architectural restorer, author, and an occasional essayist. She is very humble about what she has achieved. She is the only interior designer to get a Padma Bhushan in 1992. I'll give you a very slight glimpse of what she has done, and you'll get what I mean. She has renovated. She has worked in the Parliament of Bhutan, Rashtrapati Bhavan, and PMO South Block. And yeah, we are so happy to have you here, Sunita ji, and looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much, Rohan.
Great. So, as I said, that this is a tradition, and first of all, when we were reading about you online, it struck us that where does a cookbook like the Lucknow Cookbook come into the entire scenario? I think it's shining here, so I'll place it this way: the Lucknow Cookbook, which has been winning a lot of accolades. It has practically been across the globe, I suppose. Where does this cookbook fit into whatever you do?
Uh, well, I think, cooking is such an integral part of culture to begin with. And I don't know why we need to pigeonhole culture into arts, crafts, architecture, and the list can go on. Cooking is integral. And this book came about quite by chance because I belong to Lucknow, though I was born in undivided India in Lahore. And my mother is a legendary cook. So she had done one book which had called Continental Cuisine, which was, it just sold out its 3 editions. And with the publishers of Aleph, of the Lucknow Cookbook, I was speaking to them about another, that's a rather major book on Indian built heritage. I let them make the announcements for it, and it's a big art book. But my mother's publishers, they were going to publish her second book, which is which were recipes, 340 recipes, basically from Lucknow, but not called the Lucknow Cookbook. And the commissioning agent died or something like that happened. In any case, I was very keen that my mother's book should come out first. So when I had a meeting with Mr. Davidar, who is the publisher of Aleph, after our meeting on this big tome of a book, which I'm being commissioned to write, I asked him about if he knew of a publisher for my mother's book. And he said, immediately, Sunita, we don't do cookbooks. I said, no, I'm not even suggesting, David, that you publish this, but publishers know other publishers. In any case, he said, let me get back to it. And, in a day or two. And he did. And then he said, actually, we've thought about it internally, and we'll be happy to publish, this book, as long as it's co-authored by you and you write a 10,000 word introduction. And we only want 150 recipes. So I thought to myself, isse aasan kya cheez ho sakti hai? Because my mother had 345 recipes. Unme se 150 nikalne is no big deal. And I'm so English in any case. I became a designer by accident. I used to also teach and, masters, incomplete PhD in literature. So I said, 10,000 words is nothing. Rohan, without exaggeration, it turned out to be the most difficult thing that I had undertaken. I did it in 3 months, but whilst doing it, my mother she chose to add another 1,000 recipes. So this became like an unending thing. So that's really how the genesis of the book, but I am delighted for my mother. The book has done extremely well. It's in its 7th edition. It's one of their bestsellers. And what else can one say? And it's taken
Yeah.
a life of its own, like hearing from you out of the blue, book nerds. Of course, I'm
Yes.
delighted because I have a second home. We have a second home in Dehradun. So
Yes.
I'm delighted to be doing this, really. I mean, it's as meaningful to me as to be having a book launch in Delhi or Bombay or Calcutta or Chennai.
You're very kind, and we try to get the best books out there, whenever they are published or wherever they are published. We don't care, as good as long as it's a great book. It has to be on Book Nerds. I would like to ask you perhaps to read a couple of paragraphs, because whoever is watching, and I see a lot of food connoisseurs and chefs, even chefs, they would love to kind of get a hang of what is the tone of the book, what is the kind of structure. So
Yeah.
if you could like read
Well,
something
to
from the
speak
book.
about the structure first,
Yeah.
it's divided into 18 chapters, and it has almost an equivalent amount of non-vegetarian and vegetarian dishes, because Lucknow does both. And the recipes are really from, most importantly, the Lucknow Cookbook is about everyday food. It's not of um, you know, it's not only of rich Awadhi cuisine. So
Yeah.
it's about the food that we ate in each other's homes. So that has been the USP of the book, and maybe that is the reason why the book is done as well as it's done, because the recipes are simple, everything comes out deliciously, and there's a wide spectrum of from recipes from the many communities जिन्होंने लखनऊ अपना घर
Right.
बनाया था. So I can read out a little bit about from the notes about the book, which is something that David Davidar asked me to do. He said, so apart from the fact that, as I told you, it's got an introduction to my parents' story, which I've got
Yeah.
called Vatan Lost and Vatan
Yeah.
Found. I mean, if everybody who's read literature will know that somewhere along the line, we pick up these borrowed phrases, and this is of course Miltonian, from Paradise Lost and
Yes.
Paradise Found,
Yes.
and it's my parents' story. And so I'll start from that and go back maybe then to an excerpt from the notes.
Right.
So
Yeah.
in that, I had started off by saying that my mother first came to Lucknow in 1948, although my father had visited the city shortly after partition in 1947. My parents' families came from undivided India, from across the border to what is now Pakistan. But, as Anita Desai stated in her introduction to Atya Hussein's Sunlight on a Broken Column, that classic of Muslim life in Lucknow, and I quote her, in India, the past never disappears. So intangibly, the book is also, somehow it became about all of that. I mean,
Yes.
so
It's a beautiful line. It's a beautiful line, though.
yeah, and Atya Hussain sort of, one knew, the family one knows, and it's the most beautiful book, Sunlight on a Broken Column. So I write in a note about the book, I say Lucknow has always been a city of refinement, and its cuisine reflects these sensibilities. In many ways, Lucknow was considered the cultural capital of North India. It was here that the Urdu language was developed to near perfection.
Yeah.
It was here too that the Lucknow Gharana of Kathak dance and the Bhatkande Institute of Classical Music, both major institutions, were established.
Yeah.
Art and architecture, particularly Indo-Saracenic architecture, flourished in this city built along the banks of the river Gomti. Architectural heritage is history written in stone. This is true of the many fine buildings that still exist in this city. But most importantly, Lucknow was and still is a city known for its composite culture, its Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb.
Yeah.
And then the last paragraph of this notes, I write that the recipes in this cookbook are quite distinctly Lucknowi, whose hallmark is food that is delectable to behold, is aromatic and delicate, and is, most importantly, nutritious. This book is primarily about the food that was served in our homes and in the homes of our numerous friends, with all its seasonal variations. This cookbook needed to be written by my mother, a legendary cook, to complete the story of Lucknow's delicious and varied everyday cuisine. And then I say that it's a privilege to have been asked to write this book. And I end by saying that David Lowenthal, the American historian, is renowned for his work on heritage and spatial concepts of the past and the future, had famously pronounced that the past is a foreign country. That's a quote. This cookbook, though palpable with nostalgia, selectively recaptures events and objects from the past that are a part of the intangible heritage of food and familial memories of gentler times. These are collective memories that conserve a sense of continuity, of belonging, and of being rooted. I believe food engenders social and family harmony. It anchors us and connects us to the past, grounds us in the present, and gives us a sense of identity and belonging. Our personal histories define us, and I have chosen to define this partly through Lucknow's food traditions. The preparation of food is learned by observation. It is a process of osmosis. In our family, all four generations are reasonably good cooks. This book documents the recipes that we have learned from our mother and from our many friends in Lucknow. And then I say the last line, one can certainly cook from this book, but one can also read through the recipes to get a glimpse of Lucknowi culture and of the lives behind these recipes. This is a book for cooks and for armchair cooks, because for people who really love food, it is a lens through which to view this particular world. Thank you. So that's
Yeah.
my reading from the book.
Wonderful. And you're speaking to an armchair cook who, ventured into this difficult sort of art. I mean, at least for me. And during the pandemic, and now I'm just enjoying it. Whatever I, experiment with or, burn, I'm enjoying it. So it's a great time for me as well. Rahul Wali is asking, does this book talk about a specific gharana from Lucknow or Pacific? I'm not sure what he's asking, but is I think it's about a
And
particular art. It's
uh,
about a particular art of cooking. Perhaps he's asking. That's his question.
no, I have selected recipes that are Lucknowi, Awadhi, that are in, different things. Like if it's Dudya Taroi, then it's cooked during the summer. If it's Shabdeg, then that becomes a winter recipe. So it moves across like this. I divided the book into 18 chapters,
Right. Yeah.
18 because it's divisible into three, and both Islamic and Hindu architecture believes that that what is divisible into three is connotes infinity. At the end
Yes.
of the day, I'm a designer and I wrote a cookbook. So, in that sense, the structure of the book is very architectural.
Yeah. So Bala is asking, are there recipes for the Lucknow biryani in the book?
Oh, yes. The having said that, this is okay. This
Yeah.
is biryani,
Yeah.
and this is a mutton biryani, but there's also a wonderful vegetable biryani, and there is also a jackfruit biryani.
Yeah.
And because Lucknow had both pulaus and
Yeah.
biryanis,
Yeah.
and um, I think one of the reasons, if I may say so, why this book was successful is, and this is also feedback from many friends who are cooks and chefs,
Yeah.
is that everything is so simple to make, and it comes out perfectly. So it
Wow.
looks nice, it's delicious. So I guess
Yeah.
that's one of the
So,
reasons.
yeah, you spoke about biryani and pulao. A lot of us, are kind of conflicted between. I mean, it's on. If you go on Twitter and there are like threads on this
Uh,
about biryani, pulao, and tehri, the lesser known tehri, which many of us who have a connect with Lucknow know about.
I
So
have a wonderful tehri recipe in this.
okay.
A wonderful tehri recipe in it,
Yeah.
and of course, as I told you, the kathal ka pulao. Um,
Yes.
so they're different techniques. I mean, there are
Yeah.
as many regions there are in India. There are as many different
Yeah.
pulaos and biryanis,
Yeah.
and in fact, uh, my next book, which should have come out, but for
Yeah.
various reasons it could, because it's
Right.
part of a trilogy, is the India Cookbook, From the Table of My Friends. So that's
Okay.
north, south, east, west, And believe me, every region has its own variety of khichdi. We
Oh
have
yes.
khichda, which is so
Yes.
fantastic.
Yes. It is
And
mentioned in the book. It is mentioned in the book. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
but every region has its khichdi,
Yeah. Yeah.
and variations of it.
Right. And you mentioned that, I mean, the composite culture of plurality and complexity. It's so important, because whatever has come out, the cuisine, or whatever variations there are in Lucknow, and perhaps regions around that. Um, how do you see this? I mean, if there weren't any plurality, do you feel that it would be the same result? What is your opinion on that?
Well, Lucknow, as you know, is known for its plural culture,
Yeah.
and it is that plurality of culture, and it's composite culture. It's Ganga, Jamni, and Tehzeeb, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
That even to date, अब नवरात्रियां चल रही हैं,
Yeah.
so all Muslim butchers will be closed because it's Navratri or
Yeah.
on a Tuesday. You have a strong Lucknow connection, you know this.
Yeah.
So there's all this, or there's Bada Mangal, which is set up by a
Yeah.
Muslim, which
Yeah.
is a temple to Hanuman. Or,
Yeah.
for instance, the Bada Imam Bada, after all, that was set up. That was, as built by the fourth Nawab of Lucknow in
Yeah.
1794, Asaf-ud-Daula, who
Yeah.
moved the capital from Faizabad to
Yeah.
Lucknow.
Yeah.
And because there was a terrible famine, so uh, he he started the work on the Bada Imam Bada and its mosque as a
Yeah.
famine relief measure. And from there actually came also the dampukt way of cooking, because these huge vats would be filled with,
Yeah.
and then sealed. And so all that happened. But to speak about the secularity of Lucknow, there's a prime example. Asaf ud-Daula, Nawab of Lucknow, the
Yeah.
land that was given to the Gorakhpur Mutt
Yeah.
was given by Asaf ud-Daula. That is
Wow.
Lucknow. That is
Wow.
Lucknow. Yeah.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
it's
That's
just that
something.
we don't know our
Right.
histories,
Right.
you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a
And
prime example.
I know. So you, in the book, you have spoken about that reading has always been such a family habit in your house,
Yes.
and you all love cookbooks, which is, I mean, so relevant today, because we are kind of making this tradition of talking about cookbooks every year. So first of all, why should one take the help of a cookbook? First of all, and secondly, what is the kind of reading culture that exists right now in your family?
In our family.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to your first question first,
Yeah.
about why cookbooks.
Yeah.
I think that the best cooking is learned from watching somebody, frankly.
Yeah.
And when they cook. But how many people now have the opportunity of a joint family where they would be watching an older person cook? I mean, I learned cooking because of my mother.
Yeah.
But there are so many instances where it doesn't happen, where, people, so who are they to learn from? So either they can attend cooking classes, which are also doing fantastically well, I have to tell you, and particularly Zoom classes. Of course, I would fail in that because I'm technologically challenged. But many people also like books, and to be able to at leisure go back, read the ingredients, put all the stuff together. And I personally think I like cookbooks that are very simple to follow.
Okay. Okay.
And I think this is one of them. Therefore, I guess
Yeah, it's pretty
its
straightforward, to be
popularity.
honest. I don't know much about cooking. I'm just an average cook, and it was pretty simple. It was pretty straightforward, and I would,
Yeah.
of course, recommend it to. I mean, you have to try it out first. I mean,
Yes.
there is no way about it. Yeah, and
Yes.
the second question, Sunita ji, I asked about that. What is the kind of reading culture that exists right now and has been over a period of time
Well,
in your family?
when we were growing up, we read the classics, and I'm not just talking about Walter Scott or Charles Dickens, which of course we read, but we used to read Ainsworthy and all the lesser known classics.
Yeah.
And there's a bookshop called Universal Book Depot
Yes.
in Lucknow,
Yes.
and in fact, that's where A Suitable Boy begins.
Yes.
I mean, he based Vikram Seth based it
There's a reference.
on
Yes.
the Universal Book Depot. So
Yeah.
we used to get a book allowance because my parents encouraged us to read. We used to get a book allowance apart from our pocket money.
Yeah.
So because my parents read, and so घर का माहौल ही था पढ़ने
Yeah.
का.
Yeah.
And पढ़ने का I don't mean studying, but reading.
Right.
And we read all sorts of things. We'd read. My father was so fond of biography and history, so I have a abiding interest in reading biography and history.
Yeah.
Now, of course, and then we used to read atlases. We used to read dictionaries.
Yeah.
Now, when I think, when I guess it was a type of pagalpan, that this
Yes.
wonderful reading used to go on. But
Yes.
I'm happy to say that my daughter, who's an architect, she's a
Yeah.
good reader. My grandchildren,
Yeah.
they read voraciously. So I
Wonderful.
think these are family habits that get passed
Yeah.
down. I'm a
And
great believer in books. And that
wonderful.
reminds me, I need to tell you how delighted I am that Book Nerds out of the blues wrote to me, because Dehradun is my second home. And I'm so
Yes.
delighted to be here. So,
It is actually it is serendipity, because I get that you have such a close connection, and I wanted to talk about the Masuri Connect, but before that I wanted to mention the first gastronomical novel, which was quite new to me. I never knew this, the Passionate Epicure, that you speak
by
about in the
Marcel
book.
Proust, I
Yes,
know.
yes.
It's a wonderful book. I'm not going to spoil it for you but it's a fictional book. It's a wonderful book which was written in 1924. So my mother would have these sort of books in her library, or my parents' library, which was very much a joint thing. So we
Yes.
had all these different streams of interests in reading that would go on. Literature, of course. Therefore, I went on to do honors and a BA, and carried on. Literature, of course, but uh, books on travel, books on geography, places, and next month I would have been interior designer, my firm,
Yeah.
for 50 years.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah,
Congratulations.
so there, of course, extensive reading on the countries where I've been designing, and
Yeah.
Bhutan and Egypt, and
Yeah.
various
Yes.
countries.
Yes.
And
Yes.
of course, India is the place I passionately like to travel in. So I'm very, very fond of regional food. Wherever I go, I have to
Yeah.
try the local cuisine, or
Yeah.
I have to buy the pickle, or I have to buy either avakai somewhere, or podi somewhere, or something like
Yeah.
that. I'm always doing that.
I
So
feel I
and I
feel that there is a food blogger in you, a very extremely successful food blogger in you somewhere. I mean, if there was Instagram back then, I'm sure about it.
I'm not so certain. मेरी तो दूसरी किताब ही नहीं खत्म हो रही. You know?
Yes. So Bala is asking, any typical Lucknow desserts?
Yes. Uh, there's of course wonderful recipes of kheer, of firni, of musafir, and they're all from friends. They all tried, tested, come out beautifully. But the recipe I'd really like whoever's on the show to try is jalebi pudding. It is
Okay.
such uh, a sort of, it's existed in some form, but this form is my mother's invention.
Right.
And that again really spells out jalebi pudding is, when you think about it, is comes from recycling. Um, in a way, shahi tukda also you do with, as you know, you do with basi roti, double roti. But
Right.
and I think that's part of the having survived partition psyche, that you
Yeah.
can't waste anything.
Yeah.
So if jalebis were bought, say in Masuri in the evening,
Yeah.
and there would always be something left over. So the next day,
Yeah.
um, they were all whipped up and eggs and milk and all added. And the most delicious dessert. Uh, I'm always getting requests, we're coming for dinner, please make jalebi pudding. And you can make it in 5 minutes flat. And I think even the recipe is only 4 sentences or something. So,
Wonderful. That's amazing. So
yeah.
you have a Masuri connect, as it's pretty obvious now. And what is your relationship with Pahari food? Because since you have been here, and we are based out of Doon, and we really care about the Pahari culture and, of course, literature as well as food.
Yes.
So yeah, any thing that you might tell us about that? Have you included
You
something in the
know,
book? Yeah.
in for my India cookbook,
Yes.
you,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
um, of course, in this there isn't. But
Yeah.
believe me, I tried very hard to get typical Pahari recipes. I have not succeeded. So
Okay.
maybe I'll request your help in two or three things.
Sure.
But
Sure.
in the India cookbook, which will come out in early spring, there are recipes like which are from Himachal or Nepal,
Yeah.
which are Pahari in kind of context, but they're not from Uttarakhand.
Right. Right.
I should ask you a question. What
Yeah.
is a typical Uttarakhandi dish?
Yeah. I mean, I have, like you, I haven't found some great kind of a whole platter, but stuff like patod and these things are pretty tasty wherever I have tried it. So there are a few variations, but you're right that in the city at least it is very hard to find kind of the authentic cuisine as such. But yeah, but things are improving, and very soon perhaps there would be more outlets and kind of small homestays that offer pahadi food. But patod is something that I love and I've tried, and it's a unique thing, and it's very easy to kind of make as well.
So tomorrow you better send me the recipe.
Yes. I'll do that. Okay, so of course, I really want to know this from Lahore to Lucknow. And there's a beautiful part in the book where initially you read out from there as well. This, journey, uh, and you have kind of made comparisons also, like how the food has come, like the samosa, for example. It
Hmm.
has evolved in Lucknow, or is it born there? No, right? It has evolved.
No, actually, it came from something called samsa also, but the
Yeah.
samosa as we know it today,
Right. Right.
which has become ubiquitous, was
Yeah.
really developed in Lucknow,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
also chaat, which I
Yeah.
mentioned.
Yeah.
And I also mentioned how foods travel down the Silk Route. We must
Yeah.
never forget, because the Silk Route was not just carrying goods and was a trading route, but there was also art being exchanged, food being exchanged, things being learned from each other.
Yeah.
So, and this I realized because in Lucknow there is we have dahi ka shorba uh,
Yeah.
in the winter. It's a very popular soup, as you know.
Yeah.
We have it. And then when I went to Turkey, I remember for the first time, I mean, I've been
Yeah.
many times, but the first
Yeah.
time I think was 98. And they had yogurt soup. I said, my God, they got it from Lucknow. No, we got it from them. But
Wonderful.
Lucknow walas have made it so much as a part of their own cuisine that we forgot
Yeah.
where it comes from, or
Yeah.
that we have the fact that we put anar in so many of our things is from Afghanistan. The way we do
Yeah.
certain meats is very much the Northwest Frontier. I mean, Northwest Frontier was part of India. Now it's got,
Yeah.
since the country is divided,
Yes.
it's gone there. So there are many
Yeah.
many tales about how food mutates itself, metamorphoses into a dish that we start saying it's from our city. But what are
Yeah.
the antecedents of that dish?
Yeah. Great. So also, it's you have mentioned a particular. I mean, it was quite intriguing for me. You have mentioned an Irish stew in the book, which your mother came up with, and that was quite interesting because in a book about Lucknow, there are several improvisations, which have happened and very interesting. What about the Irish stew? Where does it fit into the entire, sort of
Story of
Lucknowi?
Lucknow.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
don't forget, Lucknow had a very strong British presence, as it also had a very um, strong French presence. So, with the British, even our way of serving, eating, I mean, this is of course much before my parents' generation,
yeah,
it started changing, and people then started having,
yeah.
as I mentioned in my introduction, a desi lunch and an Angrezi khana. Now, what was Angrezi? It wasn't Angrezi. It wasn't Angrezi. It was
Right,
Anglo-Indian,
right.
because the
Yeah,
things were added. So, which
yeah.
are quite distinct. And I also mention in the book that if you remember, all the old railway stations used to have wonderful dining rooms. Or maybe
Oh,
you're
yeah,
too young. My generation certainly remembers
yeah,
all these wonderful dining rooms, and they'd have
yeah,
mutton cutlets and vegetable cutlets
yeah,
and a variety of poutines, so
yeah,
which were puddings.
yeah,
So all this, what we called Angrezi Khana, was actually Anglo-Indian food.
yeah,
I mean, for many years we had one. We used to call him. I mean, we had a Muslim cook, and we used to call him
yeah,
Khansama. And my
yeah,
mother had taught him what was actually, but which was very popular in Lucknow,
yeah.
had taught him how to make a chicken chasseur. So he
Okay.
could never, which was of French kind of origin, but very much part of Lucknow's cuisine.
Right.
He could never say, French chasseur, so he would just call it Firangi Murgi. End of story.
What's in a name? It's about the food. I don't blame him.
Yeah. So
Wonderful. And at the end, I would love to know. Have you surprised yourself while cooking? What was that moment? And the a couple of books, maybe about cooking, barring of course the Lucknow Cookbook, which you would recommend to our readers who would love to kind of explore this genre.
I like the Silver Spoon cookbooks,
Yeah,
and I like Otto Lengi. I like
yeah,
him as a writer a lot, and I
yeah,
think his books
yeah,
are really fantastic.
yeah.
And and I can't tell you the number of books that I like, and I can't tell you the number of my friends who are cookbook authors, written
Wonderful.
across the board,
Yeah,
and who are writing family recipes, like Zareen Khan has written
yeah,
on family secrets,
yeah,
what she learned from her mother-in-law,
yeah.
and uh, then oh, uh, I mean, all my
So too
friends
many.
cook, and all of them almost have authored books. So when actually
Wonderful.
you read the India Cookbook, I
Yeah,
mean, these are my friends, and they do different things. I mean, somebody's a major philanthropist, but has brought out a cookbook. Somebody's doing something else. Is a professor, has brought out a
yeah,
cookbook. So I don't know why people think that how can an how come an interior designer wrote a book? Oh, please, first let me I never got a Padma Bhushan. I mean, I wish I had. I got a Padma Shri, please. So that's
Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about that. Yeah,
not at
yeah,
all. I just thought facts
yeah.
must always be very correct.
Yes, yes, truly, truly.
Hmm.
So yeah, my question, the second question was that have you surprised yourself by cooking something up? Has there been any moment where you surprise yourself that this has come out like better than I expected? That one moment,
Well, I
perhaps.
have to say my dahi chicken which I make,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
also in the book. It's delicious.
yeah,
This my mother taught it to me.
yeah.
Uh, and it was always nice. But she always says, I have to say that your dahi chicken is better
Yes,
than mine. And also,
brilliant.
the Lucknowi biryani, the Lucknow
Yes,
biryani
yes,
that my
yes.
mother had learned from Maharani of Jahangirabad. Then she made changes. I have also added something, and
Wonderful.
I think personally we make the best biryani in town in
Wonderful.
Delhi.
So this is one of the most. Somebody says that it is the most mouth-watering book nerds session I have ever watched. So it's a huge compliment to the author. Thank you so much for being on the Book Nerds podcast. It has truly been mouth-watering. It sounds weird, but it is. So great.
Thank you,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much for being here, and we
No,
look
and I'm
forward to yeah. I look forward
no,
to cooking the dahi chicken. I'm looking
yes.
forward to that.
And if the book is not available, it used to be available in bookshops in Dehradun. But if
Yeah.
anybody is really interested, it is
Yeah.
available on Amazon. So they can
Yes, yes,
always kind of
yes,
check it out. And
yes,
if anybody can see it, these are samosas. And I've
yes.
given the recipes of three
Right,
types of samosas.
right. Although my
Because
favorite page, sorry to cut you off, although my favorite page was this one, and we didn't talk about it.
kebabs.
How can we forget? How can we leave them behind?
I
So
know.
yeah, a session about Lucknow and no kebabs, that's not possible.
That's
But
not possible.
a true delight. This book, uh, one of my favorite reads this year, and I'm not
Thank
just
you.
doing it on just because I'm here, but it was a lot of fun because I'm looking forward to implementing it. That's the fun. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye for now. And
Bye.
thank you, anybody who came on. Um,
Yes.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure I'm going to get
Bye.
many messages. I'm going to get many messages about this. Like
Well, you can
give me the
pass them on. Let's see what they have to say about the Lucknow Cookbook. But I
yes.
hope a few of your viewers will get a chance to actually see the physical book, order it and see it. Because, तभी वो किताब का जायका पता
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
चलेगा.
I don't like Kindles at all. So get a physical copy and leave your review on Amazon, or
On
Sunita ji is
Amazon.
also yeah, on Amazon, the review, and Sunita ji can go through the reviews, or you can just send your questions to us. It's up to
Sure.
you, or you can find Sunita ji on social media as well. So she is also there on Instagram, Facebook. Thank you so much, ma'am. It
I'm not
is
very
just
active there, but people are.
whenever you get time.
Yes, yes.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye for now.